was the independent task. We've also seen the second question, which was the one where you had to read the announcement or read the letter, then listen to the conversation between the students. And finally, we're gonna see today question 3 of the speaking section, which is the second to last in the speaking section. Remember that you have a total of 4 different questions in the speaking. Right? So, do you guys have any questions before we start today's class? Okay, guys, great. Then let's start seeing the third question of the speaking section. The truth is that in terms of format, the third question is very similar to the second. You will see, it's very similar to the second question. In terms of format, I mean, you will have to do pretty much the same, but the content is obviously different. So let's see. So for question 3, the first thing that you guys will have to do is read a short passage. Now this time, unfortunately, you won't be reading something as casual as what we read on question 2. So you will have to actually read an academic passage. It will be an academic text, something that you could maybe find in a university text. So you will be reading this passage. You have 45 seconds to read the text. It's the same as question 2. Then after you're done reading, you will have to listen to an audio file. But in this case, you guys won't be listening to a conversation anymore. You will have to listen to a lecture. So do you guys remember what a lecture was? Does anyone remember what it was? What was a lecture?
Like a class?
Exactly, it's a class, it's a university class. So you will have to listen to the audio of a recording of a university class. And then you will have the question. You will be given the exact same amount of time to prepare and to speak as in question 2. So that is 30 seconds to prepare and 60 seconds to speak, or 1 minute to speak. Okay, guys? That is the format. We're going to watch a short video to show you guys exactly how this question will look like when you're taking the test. But do you have any questions so far? Is everything okay so far? All right, let me see.
Number 3. In this question, you will read a short passage on an academic subject and then listen to a talk on the same topic. You will then answer a question using information from both the reading passage and the talk. After the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. Now read the passage from a psychology textbook. You have 45 seconds to read the passage. Begin reading now.
So as you guys can see, first you get the instructions. They will tell you that they will give you a passage that you have to read, 45 seconds. You get the title, you get the text, and then you get the time, right? 45 seconds. After the 45 seconds go by, they will ask you to listen to the lecture.
Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic in a psychology class.
And while you're listening to the lecture, you just see a picture on the screen, right? You don't see anything else. You listen to this lecture, and then you get the question.
Using the example from the lecture, explain what behavior modification is and how it works.
Begin to prepare your response after the beep. Speaking after the beep.
Right, so just like that. You have a timer for everything. They let you know when you have to start speaking, when you have to start preparing your response. And it's exactly like that. After the 60 seconds are over, then you're done with this question. Is this okay? Do you guys have any questions now in terms of the format, of the things you can or cannot do? I don't know. Everything clear so far? Okay, so let's start seeing an example. Okay, and I will tell you guys exactly what to do for this question. So remember that the first thing that you have to do is read the text. But before you even read the text, the first thing that I want you guys to do is, as soon as you get the text, is to please copy the title. So you see the title, it says behavior modification for this question only, okay? I'm not talking about the previous one, I'm talking about question 3. So as soon as you read the text, as soon as you get the text, you copy the title and you write it down in your notes. So please, everybody, write behavior modification, okay? You copy the title. Now, you copy the title because the title is the main topic. That is the main topic of the entire thing. So you need to have that and you need to mention it when you're speaking. So it's really important that you guys don't forget to do it. Then you start reading the text. And when you read, you're going to find different things, all right? You're going to find an explanation of a specific academic concept. In this case, the concept is behavior modification. So if we read the text, we will find an explanation on what behavior modification is, maybe a few examples, maybe a classification, I don't know. But there's just one thing that you guys need to actively be looking for when you're reading the text, and that is the definition of this concept. Fact is, you will always have one phrase or one sentence that contains the main definition of the topic or the title, okay? So your job and the most important thing that you guys need to do when you're reading is looking for that definition. You gotta find that definition, and of course you gotta take notes about the definition because you will have to mention that later. So I will give you guys some time, let's say 45 seconds to read this text, and I want you all to tell me what the definition of behavior modification is according to this text. Okay, so please read what we have. Okay, guys. So, tell me, guys, what is the definition of behavior modification, or where can you find the definition in the text? What is behavior modification?
I think it's when you change your actions based on what you learn from your experience.
Exactly, great. Salma, I love that. That's exactly it. And you are paraphrasing it. You're saying it in your own words. I like that. Which it's not necessary that you do that though, but yes, that's correct. Maybe if we had to find or choose one sentence or word phrase, maybe we could go for the last one. So behavior modification is when individuals change their behavior based on what they have learned and the consequences of that behavior. But yes, when you change the way you behave based on what you have learned from experience, right? About the consequences of your behavior. Okay, so you need to take notes, right? Remember, you find the definition and you write down a few things that will help you remember that definition. Is that okay so far? Do you guys have any questions as to what you have to do here when you're reading the text? No questions? Okay, guys. So we're gonna hear the lecture now. I want you all to be ready to take it. But before you hear the lecture, what are you going to hear? What are you going to have in let's talk about that. So in this lecture, basically you will be hearing somebody speak. This somebody, we're going to call him or call her the professor, okay? Because it's a university teacher. And basically this professor will be giving you real world, real life examples of this concept. So you will be hearing about how you see this concept behavior modification in real life. So you will just have that, details and examples that illustrate this concept so that you can understand better the idea. So depending on what topic you have, you could have either one or two examples. In this case, when you guys get psychology, you always have just one example. So you guys will be now hearing to one example of behavior modification. So you just have to pay attention and take notes. Now, one thing that I want to be clear is starting now, and that is, I would say, probably one of the most important things in this task, is that you need to make sure that you really understand well what the concept is. You don't just read because you read. You're looking for understanding the idea. So you need to make sure that you get a good idea of what the concept is before listening to the lecture. Because if you go and listen to the lecture without having really well read the text before, and without having a good understanding of the definition of the concept, then you're going to be a little bit lost and it'll be hard for you to classify information and separate relevant information from irrelevant information. Because the truth is that at the end of the day, there are going to be a lot of details that are not relevant to your response, that you will have to exclude and you will have to leave out when you're speaking. So in order for you to know what is important to mention and what is important to have in your notes, you need to really well understand the definition. So in this case, you know that behavior modification is when people change their behavior based on what they learn about the consequences of that behavior. So with that in mind, when you're listening, you should be aiming to get to basically have an example of some individuals. So maybe a group of people, maybe one person in particular, maybe a story from one, maybe an experiment. So one specific individual or specific group of people that is changing or modifying their behavior. So you're looking for what behavior this is based on the consequences of that behavior. So you also want to see what the consequences of that behavior are, right? So you're looking for that specific information. You need to be an active listener. You're not just, again, listening because you have to listen. You're looking for specific information in the lecture, okay, based on what you have read in the text. Okay, guys, so we're going to hear this example and I want you guys to take notes. Do you have any questions before I play the audio file? Okay, guys, so let's hear it then. Let's see what we have in the lecture.
Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic in a psychology class.
This happens all the time with kids in schools. Say there's a little boy or girl who's just starting school. Well, they're not really used to the rules about proper behavior for a classroom. So at the beginning they might, I don't know, interrupt the teacher, walk around the classroom when they're supposed to be sitting down. You know, just misbehaving in general. Okay, but what happens? Well, the teacher gets angry with them when they act this way. They might get punished. They have to sit at their desks when everyone else is allowed to go outside and play. And they certainly don't like that. Soon, they'll learn that this kind of behavior gets them in trouble. They'll also learn that when they raise their hand to talk to the teacher and sit quietly and pay attention during class, they're rewarded. The teacher tells them she's proud of them and maybe puts little happy face stickers on their homework. Now that their behavior gets a good reaction from the teacher, the kids learn to always act this way in class and not behave the way they used to.
Okay, guys. So can you please tell me what the lecture was about? What was the example we had for behavior modification?
The kid in the school.
Exactly. Well, it was about kids in schools. And what does the professor say about them?
The kid doesn't know how to act in the class, so the teacher needs to teach them how to act, like raise their hands when they want to talk.
Okay, yeah, in a way. But how is that related to this concept of behavior modification?
That the kid will learn their behavior now. It's going to have a consequence. So they learn how to act in the class.
Exactly, and they modify their initial behavior, right? Because initially they started misbehaving, but at the end they changed that behavior to a good behavior. Exactly. So this is a transcript of the lecture. If we had to highlight a few things, it's exactly what Guadalupe was saying. You need to look for the important information. So first of all, a little bit of context. This example is about kids in schools. And the professor says that initially kids don't know the rules. So kids start misbehaving in class. This is the behavior, a bad behavior, right? We have different details. Let's not get there, but they misbehave. And when they misbehave, the teacher punishes the student. So they get punished when they misbehave. Now, this is the consequence for their behavior. So they learn what the consequence for misbehaving are. Now, on the other hand, when they behave properly, when they behave well, when they raise their hand, when they are quiet, they are rewarded, right? So when they behave well, they are rewarded. They also see that and they learn what the reaction and what the consequence of behaving well is, a reward. So they probably like that. It's a pleasant consequence. And what happens? At the end, they learn to always act this way. So they modify their initial behavior, they change it. Why do they change it? Based on what? Based on what they have seen are the consequences of their behavior. Based on what they have seen are the teacher's reactions to their behavior, right? And this is the example of behavior modification. That is important information. Mostly how they change their behavior, how their behavior has shifted from misbehaving in the beginning to now behaving properly. Okay, guys? So is that okay? Do you have this in your notes? Do you have any questions about what we heard? All right then. So, okay, the question is very simple. It says, or maybe, I don't know. Could somebody please read the question I have on my screen?
Using the example from the lecture, explain what behavior modification is and how it works.
Okay, thank you so much. So that is the question. Now it's interesting because they are not asking you to summarize. They're not like summarize the reading and summarize the lecture. They don't want you to just summarize. They want you to explain the concept, to explain what behavior modification is, but not just explain it with the definition or explain it the way you want. You need to explain the concept with the example from the lecture. So it's like they are asking you to connect the ideas. They're asking you to connect both the reading and the listening and come up with a response that is easy to understand. You need to explain the concept with the example, like the way you would explain something to, let's say, a 13-year-old child. So that's what you guys have to do. And you have 30 seconds to prepare and 60 to speak. Is that okay so far? Any questions about the question in its own? Okay, yeah. So what do we do? How do we explain the concept using the example? How can we structure our response? This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna start, remember that you have 60 seconds, right? So we're gonna start with a short introduction that is not supposed to be longer than 10 seconds. This is one very common mistake, spending too much time in the introduction, but 10 seconds is the most you can spend. And in your introduction, what you guys are going to do is mention the title that you have in your notes, mention the topic or AKA the title, and define the concept, define the topic using the definition you have in your notes, the definition that you got from the reading, okay? The definition that I told you to search for the definition, you need to use it here. So in this case, for example, you may say, according to the passage, behavior modification occurs when individuals change their behavior based on experience. Okay? That is your introduction, where you talk about the reading, you mention the title, and you explain the definition. Is that okay so far? Do you guys have any questions about the introduction? All right, then, and then you have 50 seconds all to yourself to explain the example or to use the example to explain the concept. So you have to summarize the example, but you need to focus on the relevant information, right? Forget about the details, forget about even the sequence of events sometimes. You need to focus on what is relevant. You need to focus on how that example is connected to the definition you already have on the concept. It's the only thing that I could say. You need a short transition to transition from the reading to the listening. So you may say, in the lecture, the professor gives the example of kids in schools. And then you start explaining. He explains that, and then you explain exactly what Guadalupe was doing, explain the example. Okay, guys? You do not need a conclusion, but if you happen to have some extra time, then you can go ahead and go with one. You may say something like, in summary, this is a glaring example of behavior modification. Okay, guys? And that's about it. That's all, everything you actually need for this task. What do you guys think? Is it okay? Do you have any questions about this? Okay. So I'm going to give you guys a sample response. I'm going to give you an example of how I would do it so that you get to see how I organize my time, how I deliver my response, my vocabulary, grammar, the connectors that I use, the way that I organize my time, the things that I say in the content, the things that I don't say, if I have a conclusion or not. You can analyze those things. Okay, guys? Let's see. According to the reading passage, behavior modification occurs when people change their behavior based on experience. In the lecture, the professor gives the example of kids in the classroom, and he explains that initially when kids are new, they don't know the rules of the classroom. Therefore, they may start misbehaving. As a result, the professor could punish the student, or the teacher could punish the student, and they learn what the consequence to their actions are, what the consequence or the reaction from the teacher is when they misbehave. On the other hand, when kids behave properly in class, for example, if they raise their hand, if they sit quietly, the teacher rewards the student. Hence, the kids also learn that behaving well gets them a reward. At the end, kids are going to modify their initial behavior and they're going to start behaving properly in class. Right? So to be honest, I ran out of time. I wanted to say they will modify their behavior, but I forgot. Well, I didn't forget. I just didn't have time to say they learn this by seeing what the teacher's reaction to their behavior is. I didn't have time to say that, but it was still okay because I tried to hide the fact that I ran out of time, you know? So that's an example, you know, it's an idea, it's a way in which you could answer this question. I don't know if you guys noticed, but I was trying to use a couple of transitions here and there. So initially, however, on the other hand, therefore, hence, at the end, try to use those transitions. I try to focus on the relevant information rather than like over explaining the ideas or filling the time with details. I try to go for the most important ideas, you know, the ones that are related to the cause. And I didn't have a conclusion at all. So what do you guys think now that you've heard my response as well? Any comments, suggestions, questions? All clear? Okay, guys, another thing is that another great thing about this question is that we already know what to expect. Aside from the structure and aside from what to do exactly, we also know what topics you guys can have in this question particularly. So 90% of the time, you guys are gonna get one of these three big categories. You can have psychology, which is the one that we just did. When you guys get psychology, they talk about everything related to our brain, you know, so how we experience certain things, how we learn, how we deal with emotions, how we process pain, process experiences, how we interact with each other, everything that has to do with the way we behave, the way we think, the way we learn, the way we connect, all of that. Now, biology, the second one. Biology is usually animal or plants. It's never going to be human biology, so don't worry, it won't be anything that complicated. And when they talk about animals or plants, they mainly talk about how they have adapted to certain changes, how they have evolved throughout time, how they survive, the mechanisms they use to survive, to catch food, to find food, I don't know, to protect their habitats. Then you have business, third main category. Business is simple business, never like hardcore economics. And when you have business, you tend to have like marketing techniques, strategies to attract consumers, diversifying, expanding, advertising, those sort of things. Now, that is like 90% of the time, but there's also a small percentage, a small chance that you can get something different, that you have something related to the arts, to history, sociology, literature, and many other things. Okay, guys? Now, here's the important thing. How is this useful? Like, why am I telling you this? How is this going to help you? The truth is, if you guys don't have good vocabulary related to these topics, and you get, let's say that you get a biology question, and they're talking about animals and how they catch food. Okay, so you're gonna have words like maybe predators, prey, species, habitat, survival. So if you guys don't know those words, if you have never seen or never heard them, then when you get these words, you're gonna be a little bit lost. You won't understand much. So it is really important that you guys try to expand your vocabulary in these areas, and and that is gonna help you. Obviously, vocabulary is gonna be useful for everything, but especially in this question and in the next question, it will help your understanding and it will help your speaking needs all. Okay. Now, how do you expand your vocabulary in these areas? By consuming content. I don't want you guys to go online and look up most common psychology words and then try to memorize them or try to do flashcards or anything. That's not what I want you guys to do. I want you to try to consume content that contains this vocabulary, the target vocabulary. So, for example, for psychology, you can maybe watch TED Education talks, or you can listen to different podcasts that we have on psychology topics. For biology, you always have National Geographic videos, you have Scientific American, you have different podcasts, Discovery Channel. That's gonna help you. For business, well, business I think is probably the thing that has the most material available. There are so many podcasts online related to business topics. Um, so I would say podcast is usually the main thing for business. Okay, guys, but you still have TED Education. There's even business English on its own. So that would be my advice. Expand your vocabulary by consuming this type of content. You can always read as well, because reading is always going to be a good practice. So make sure that you learn vocabulary by learning the words with context. Because if you don't, you're probably just going to forget 1 week after you supposedly learn the words. Okay, guys? So that would be my advice in terms of vocabulary. It is important that you guys are familiarized with a couple of words, basic words. I'm not going to ask you to study psychology and so on, but you do have to have a few words so that you can defend yourself. Okay, guys? So I think that would be about it for the theory of this question. What do you guys think? Do you have any questions, any comments? Is everything clear? Okay, guys, awesome. So we did psychology. Why don't we practice doing one biology and one business topic? And if we have time, we can do one more of the others, so that you guys get to see a little bit of how every topic is. Okay, guys, let's do it. Let's see. Whoever wants to try can try, and if nobody wants to try, we can do it together as well. But it'd be awesome if somebody would wanna go. So let's see. So we did psychology. Let's see if we have some business or bio. Okay, here's business. Okay, guys, let's do this one in here. Hang on a sec. Hey guys, so remember that you have 45 seconds to read the text. Please, you may start reading now.
Now listen to part of a lecture on this topic in a marketing class.
Nowadays, something you notice more and more is television commercials that are made specifically for certain television programs. So, let's say a company wants to sell a telephone, a cell phone. Now, during TV shows that young people watch, shows with pop music or teen serials, they create a commercial that emphasizes how fun the phone is. The phone has bright colors, and they show kids having a good time with their friends. And, well, the company wants the kids watching TV at this time to want to buy this phone that's made especially for them. But the same company will make a different commercial to be shown during, say, a program about business or a business news show. Now, for this group of people, business people, the company will have to show how efficient their phone is, how it can handle all business easily, and maybe even save money. And here's the thing. It's basically the same phone. The company has just made two different commercials to appeal to different groups of people.
Okay, guys, now the question says, using the professor's examples, explain the advertising technique of target marketing. You will now have 30 seconds to prepare your response. Okay. So, is there anyone who wants to try?
Can I try?
Yeah, sure, Sana. Go ahead, please.
According to the passage, the target marketing is defined as the strategy to advertise to a smaller and specific group of potential customers. In the lecture, the professor gives an example of a cell phone that make different advertisements for the different kinds of customers. For example, during programs for young people, in the advertising, they use bright colors and try to recreate some situations that young people used to live. And they want to make them believe that the phone is made for them. But during another kind of shows, like business shows, they show the same phone, but showing how the phone is helping them in business.
Exactly, Sana, really well done. That was amazing, I would say. To your first try, I'm really amazed. So starting from your introduction, you had the correct definitions, target marketing, the strategy of advertising to smaller groups of potential customers, as you said. And I like that you have the vocabulary to talk about business. The way you explained the example was really cool. In this case, we had one example that sort of contained two parts, but you explained them both really well. It is true that maybe you dedicated more time to the first part of explaining how the advertisement made for young people was, but I think it wasn't necessary to give so many details for the second because the idea was really clear and really well easy to understand. So I don't think I have any comments. One detail, remember that the term used to is to talk about the past. In this case, they recreate situations that young people tend to live or tend to experience, right, instead of used to in the past. And second, maybe as a tip, you can try to add more transitions as you go. Instead of saying But for business people, only however, or on the other hand, for business people, they made a different commercial. Maybe those would be some comments, but I would say you could get even a perfect score with our response. Well done, Simon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys, do you have any questions so far? How was this one? This is business. Okay, if everything's okay, let's do biology as well. It's a little bit harder in a way, I guess, for some students, mainly because of the vocabulary, okay? Because sometimes you get weird names of animals and plants that you don't know, and that sort of gets you stuck. But it's a matter of practicing. You will see. So let's see. 45 seconds to read the text.
Now listen to part of a lecture from a biology class.
There's a large tropical insect called the peanut bug. Yes, like the peanuts that you eat. And the peanut bug's front wings are colored so that they blend in with their surroundings. But its back wings, which are usually closed and hidden, have these bright, colorful spots on them. And when the peanut bug's attacked, it suddenly opens its back wings, and out pop these big, bright colors. And that surprises the predator and gives the peanut bug a chance to get away. And then you have a butterfly called the morpho butterfly. And parts of the morpho butterfly's wings are very shiny. They reflect a lot of sunlight. When this butterfly is resting, this shiny part of its wings is hidden. Now, morpho butterflies are often attacked by birds. So when a bird approaches, the morpho flies away. And when the morpho flaps its wings, all the bird can see are flashes of light reflected from the morpho's wings. Those flashes of light make it very difficult for the bird to follow the morpho, and the morpho is usually able to get away.
Okay, guys. So using the examples from the peanut bag and the morpho butterfly, explain the concept of revealing coloration. Now you guys will have 30 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, so is there anyone who would like to try this one here?
Okay, I can.
Yeah, sure, Noelia. Go ahead, please.
According to the passage, revealing coloration is a defensive strategy using the colorations in animals or insects. In the lecture, the professor gave the examples of peanut bags that they blend in surrounding, and they have wings. And when the peanut bags are in emergency, they have wings that are very colorful, and also are too bright, that surprise their enemy and run away. And like the amorpho butterflies, who has also shiny backs, and that can help to birds to that shiny butterflies flips that flashes lights, and the birds have difficult to follow there.
Okay, it's difficult for the birds to follow, right? Okay. Great, really good. I mean, the content was perfect. Great introduction. You had the correct definition. The way you manage your time too. Your introduction was 10, 11 seconds, I think. Great amount of time. You had the correct definition. The examples were well explained as well. The peanut bag and the colorful spots on their back wings, and how they display these colorful spots, and in order to dazzle or confuse the predator when they're being attacked. And same thing, similar to the morpho butterfly. Right, so I don't think I have any comments really. One thing that I really liked was how you made, and I think this was a tip that I wanted to give you guys actually. Like when you guys have animals or plants as examples, and well, in order to talk about them, it's always better to turn them into the plural form. Exactly like Noelia was doing, right? So the professor gives the example of the peanut bags, the morpho butterflies. And that way you want to struggle with the pronouns, because sometimes it gets hard to know what pronoun to use, right? Technically it will have to be it, but since we're not so used to that structure, sometimes it's hard and we get confused. So really good tip to talk about animals and plants in the plural form, to use they, them as pronouns. Maybe some transitions to separate, especially if you have two examples. Additionally, the professor also gives the example of the morpho butterfly, maybe. So those transitions to separate the ideas a little bit more would be good. But other than that, I think I would change anything. It was really good response, Noelia. Thank you. Hey guys, do you have any questions so far? Okay, so let's do one more that's not psychology, biology, or business. Let's do something different, so that you get to see that it's the same at the end of the day, right? The only maybe problem would be that you may find some unknown vocabulary, but they're never going to be like technical words. So let's see this example here. This is art history. So you guys will have 45 seconds to read the text.
Now listen to part of a lecture in an art history class.
All right, so let's consider the work of the outsider artist Henry Darger. Darger lived by himself in a tiny apartment in Chicago in the 1900s. He had no friends and spent all his spare time there alone, creating hundreds of paintings and drawings. He had never formally studied art, and kept his work completely private, so no one ever saw it or responded to it during his lifetime. And so when you see Darger's work, you notice how unique it is. It doesn't remind you of anything you've ever seen before. It's very much his own. For example, one piece, it's a watercolor painting. In this piece, he illustrates a story about the adventures of 7 children. But see, Darger had a really hard time drawing human figures, yet he managed to come up with his own rather unique solution for the problem. He simply cut out pictures of children from newspapers and magazines and pasted them into his own painted illustration of trees, flowers, and grass. The results look a little strange. Darger's picture looks more cluttered, more crowded with details than the pictures of other artists, because its entire surface is painted and there are no spaces left empty. It's also a lot longer than the pictures of most other artists, about 9 feet long.
Okay, guys, now the question says, explain why Henry Darger is considered as an outsider artist. And you will now have 30 seconds to prepare your responses. Okay, guys, so is there anyone who would like to try this one? Anyone? Okay. What is the concept? It says outsider art. What's outsider art? It says it's art that is made by people who choose to live and work outside of society, right? And the artist that produces this kind of art is called an outsider artist. So we would have to say, according to the reading passage, an outsider artist is one that chooses to live and work outside of society and produces unique types of work, maybe. Now, the professor gives the example of Henry Darger, right? So we would have to say, in the lecture, the professor gives the example of Henry Darger. Now, why was he considered an outsider artist? Because, first of all, we relate it back to the definition. Henry Darger was an artist that had no formal education, and he chose to live and work outside of society, right? He had no contact with other people, and so the work that he produced was outsider art, was really strange. And then the professor gives details, right? Gives a specific example of one very strange looking piece that he made. So maybe we can talk about that. We can say the professor talks specifically or particularly about one artwork he created, which narrated the story of 7 children. And what is the strange part about this work is that he didn't know how to draw human figures, so he cut figures from newspapers and magazines and pasted them into the canvas. So his artwork was strange. It was very unique, unconventional. It was longer than usual, and it was crowded with details. Everything was painted in the canvas, right? Maybe those are some details that you could add. But that's it. It's not very difficult. Maybe the problem could be the grammar part, referring to Henry Darger in the past tense. But you can always talk about him in the present tense, no problem. You could technically say Henry Darger is an artist that lives outside of society and works outside of society, and his work is very unconventional. You could technically use the present simple if you want. Okay, guys? So yeah, that would be your response, Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, guys. So what do you think about this task so far? We haven't practiced much. We have just seen the different types of questions we have. Tomorrow we're gonna practice. But what do you think about it so far? Do you think it's easier, harder than the second?
It depends about the topic. This last one for me was a little bit more difficult than the other ones because I don't have probably the technique words of art. So I have to practice more.
Okay. So yes, to be honest, I mean, learning vocabulary on these topics does help, right? So maybe you needed the word canvas, for example, which is a word related to art, or maybe, I don't know, artwork, but that I wouldn't say that's too technical. In general, to talk about art, there's not much vocabulary, maybe viewer, so the viewer finds it very strange. I don't know, there weren't many, but yes, there was some technical vocabulary. Yeah, and I think this gets more complicated when you have, especially when you have biology, in those cases you have a few very technical words. Any other questions, any other comments before we go? Is everything clear so far? Okay, guys, so please don't go yet. Today we actually have to complete 2 surveys. I'm sending you guys the first. And as soon as you are done, I will be sending you the other one too. So could you please fill it out for me? Really appreciate it if you do. Okay. Hey guys, thank you so much. I'm also sending you the other one. And that's gonna be it. I will see you guys next class or tomorrow. Hope you have a great week, I'm sorry, I'm thinking it's Friday, a great night, rest of your night.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.